Hello there, welcome to Genesis Models. My name's Bobby Waldron and I am going to give you a step-by-step video build of the 1:48 scale Airfix BA Systems Red Arrows Hawk T1 trainer. Now this is the first ever step-by-step video build that I've done here at Genesis Models, and the whole reason of picking this particular aircraft is because I want to keep it basic. You know, I don't want to show you how to do a professional model with all the techniques and, you know, everything to know about modeling professionally. I just wanted to keep it nice and basic for someone who likes building models but wants to start, you know, getting there with some professional techniques and spraying and all that kind of stuff. Not only that, I mean, this kit, I mean, it's only cost about £17 or something like that. You do get some paints with it, you do get some glue, some paint brushes. To be honest with you, the paint brushes are crap. The glue, you don't really want to use that. The paints, I don't know, they might not be too bad, but you also do get a stand with this, so you can make it all a bit more easier for yourself and not have to do all the landing gear side of things and just stick it on a base. Not only that, I picked the Red Arrows because the spraying side of modelling can be quite expensive. For example, you know, a simple Evolution 2-in-1 airbrush is £130. I've got a air compressor down here, that was £250. I mean, simply having this quick release valve, it's like £20–30, you know. I mean, it's really expensive. And if you're someone who's, you know, thinking about getting into building professionally, you don't want to be spending £400 on like an airbrushing setup. So with this model, because it's nice, clean, glossy, you know, you look at any reference photos, you're not going to be doing any kind of weathering, to be honest with you. So there's no need for any fancy spraying like pre-shading, post-shading, bleaching and all that kind of stuff. You know, you will simply just be able to spray this all red and then give it a gloss coat. So you can get away with nicely buying I think you can get these £20 airbrushes off eBay, and you can even use a can of air instead of having an air compressor. So, you know, basically it would be nice and cheap for you, and you can still get a professional finish because you don't need to go really anywhere near doing any kind of fancy spraying or anything like that with this particular kit. Apart from that, I mean, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do an inbox review of this, and then I'm going to get it on the bench and start actually building it. So keep watching and I'll get on with an inbox review. Hello there. Right, we've got the inbox review now of our 1:48 scale Airfix BA Systems Red Arrows Hawk T1 trainer. Nice basic build, retails at around about the £17 mark depending on where you go. So just to kind of show you what you get in this kit, just to show you a few freebies, is this stuff, and I'll just get my little tray out here. Right, with this we do get some free paints and paint brushes and stuff, and some glue. To be honest with you, these paint brushes are kind of not very good, to be honest. I personally just use these to kind of like mix paint up, you know, because they're not really that good, and I'd rather use these mixing up paint or something. So I'll put them with the rest. You get a bit of glue here, some poly cement. To be honest with you, you don't want to be using this kind of glue, you want to be using this kind of glue. We're going to talk more about gluing when we go through the whole build stage. Basically, this is much more messier and not very good, whereas this is a much more nicer, cleaner way of gluing your model together. So we'll touch on that later. You do get a bunch of paints here. I've never used them, to be honest with you. I don't know how good they are. Oops. You might want to use them yourself. I'll probably just put them in the bin, to be honest. You also get, which is kind of like a nice little touch, is you do get this like in-flight display base with a little sticker on here telling you that it's a Hawk. It's up to you whether you want to use this, but I'm kind of still umming and ahhing whether or not I'm going to have the landing gear up and have an in-flight display. But it's a nice touch if you want to use that, which, to be honest with you, for about £17 to get all the glue and all that, and even an in-flight display base is not bad actually for value for money. Next, looking at our instructions here, we get a bit of a history kind of write-up. Now I have built this one before, but not the Red Arrows version. I built, I forgot what it was now, I think it was just a trainer version. But you get a nice, colourful, kind of like a decal guide and a paint guide, which is a nice little touch to see that in colour. Moving along, I think from what I can remember, the actual build process of the instructions is actually quite straightforward. There's no real issues. The one thing I will be touching on though in the whole basics of building professionally is going to be not to follow the instructions step by step. You know, if you really study the instructions and you look through, you will see that actually if you did this first or that first, it will make, you know, the earlier steps a lot easier and makes your sanding, filling, scribing a lot easier, and all that kind of stuff. But we'll touch on that when we go through the actual build. But you do have options for flaps up and down, canopy open, landing gear up and down. We've got speed brakes. But it is pretty straightforward. Just remember, you got to put a 10 gram weight in the front of the nose section. So not bad on the instructions. We've now got, actually I'll do the decals first. The decals, not used these decals before, so I'm not sure, you know, how good the quality is going to be, but they do all look nicely in register. It does look like you can put whatever tail numbers that you want on there, so you know, if you want to pick a particular tail number you can. And then we got one big bag here, so we'll cut these out and we'll see what we've got in here. Right. Nicely, the canopy is separately bagged. Doesn't always mean you're not going to end up with a scratch canopy, but you know, some people don't even bag the canopies up. And looking at this, I mean, I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but we are looking at quite a nice and shiny canopy. I mean, it is looking a little bit thick maybe, and we've actually got some sort of a burn mark there, or some sort of a, yeah, I think we should be alright. There's a little kind of sort of like a burn mark. I don't know how well you can see it if I bring it up to the camera. But luckily it hasn't gone on to our glass area where we want it all nice and shiny. It is just actually where we're going to be spraying, so we're going to be okay with that. But yeah, they do look alright. Moving through. Okay, the detail on this is a bit on the light side. Looking at this, it is recessed panel lines. I'm not seeing any riveting going on, so you know, you might want to put some work into riveting this, maybe put a few more panel lines in or something like that. We've even got our some cockpit detail here. I don't know how well you can see that. It's not brilliant, but I mean, you know, it'll do the job. I suppose as long as you kind of go canopy down, you should be okay. And then we've got the other side of the fuselage here, just the same. Same with that bit of canopy cockpit detail. Not bad. I mean, the plastic's quite nice by the feel of it. We've got another sprue here, which is just some options here. I think you've got some different options here to kind of have your flaps up and down, some fuel tanks. They're looking nice. Recessed panel lines. I mean, they're looking kind of consistent, but I've noticed in one or two places you might just have to get the P cutter out, you know, do a little bit more on some areas where the recessed panel lines are, just to kind of get them all consistent all around. Looking through a bit more. Landing gear, it looks nice, but it's still kind of on the basic side. But again, not bad. I have built this before, and oh, hold on. Somebody made a mistake with this kit. They've given me 2 fuselage sections. Okay. Well, if anybody needs a fuselage section, let me know and I'll send it. Yeah. Very strange. Carrying on again. I mean, our cockpit detail is very kind of basic. I'm not sure if you can get a resin cockpit. I think you can. You might want to go down that road. But closed canopy, I think we might be alright there. Looking at the rest of the detail, I mean, it's looking good. I mean, I'm not seeing any major flash going on here, and I'm not seeing any kind of eject pin marks that are going to be a problem. Well, not yet anyway. Yeah, I mean, it does look good, but I mean, the detail's looking a bit on the basic side. Yeah, it is looking quite basic. I would probably come along, and I'm probably going to put some extra rivets and extra recessed panel lines in here. We do have about 4 sidewinders here, which is quite nice, but we're doing a red arrow, so we're not really going to use them, so that can go in our little pile of spares. But yeah, apart from that, I mean, you know, I mean, this kit as a basic nice kind of kit, and a bit of TLC with adding a bit of detail with rivets, recessed panel lines, you know, I mean, this can turn out to be quite a nice kit. You have got everything you need to do that, and as I say, this is going to be quite a nice easy one, because the spray work is just, it's all red, and we just got to make it nice and shiny. There's nothing kind of fancy going on there. I know the decals can be a bit tricky in the sense that, say, I don't know how you can see it, but this part here, it kind of goes underneath. This kind of like arrow bit on the underside, it does go through where you've got all your gear bay doors, so you've got to kind of mess around kind of getting them to line up and everything on the gear bay doors, as well as onto the model itself. And then there's this big long decal lunk here, a little tricky, but I mean, you know, you take your time, you'll get through it. So apart from that, I mean, looks like a nice kit. I'd say it's recommended, because I mean, it's nice, it's basic, it's cheap, it's an easy spray job, and if you want to come along and add a bit of rivets, a bit of recessed panel lines, you can really make it a bit nicer. Cockpit detail sadly is a bit on the dull side, so unless you're going to get some sort of photo etch resin, something like that, I'd probably definitely recommend that you go for the canopy closed. But apart from that, I mean, yep, good kit. So I'm going to now get this on the bench, start building, and go through our step-by-step video build. Okay, welcome back. Right, we're now going to start building through our cockpit side of things with Red Arrow Hawk T1 trainer. Now, all I've done is I've cut off all our little pieces here that we need for our cockpit and prepped them up, sanding them and just making them all nice and neat. But to go through some of the basics, I've got our cockpit tub here, and just to kind of go through the best way to get this off of the sprue. Now, back in the day, you might have done something like you just come along with a blade and simply you'd cut into it and cut it off that way, or twist it off and get it off that way. Problems with twisting it off, it's not so neat. You end up kind of damaging the part that you want to use, and with the blade you end up cutting lots of little holes into your desk or stuff like that. And not only that, as you're kind of cutting it in, you can potentially kind of like chop a bit of the plastic off of the part you want as well. So it's a lot easier if you come along with a decent pair of scissors, you know, a bit expensive, quite strong, quite sharp, and simply you bring your scissors to the tab area, and you want to cut it so that you leave, you know, maybe just about a mil or just under a mil off, and just simply snip them off. Do that both sides, and we've got our cockpit tube off the sprue now. And what we've got here, we've got little tabs still left over just on the end on both sides. Now to remove these, I mean, again, back in the day you probably come along with a sharp blade and you would sort of chop them off and make them all nice and neat. Now with using the blade, the problem is you can kind of chop into it, and again you end up chopping away part of the piece that you don't want to be chopping away. So the kind of the safest and easiest, well, maybe not the easiest, but the safest and neatest way would to be come along with something like a skinny stick, kind of like nice and coarse to start off with, and just simply sand away at our tab, using kind of like quite a coarse one at first, just to get away, you know, most of the tab. And when you start coming closer to the part we want to keep, you know, we can then turn to a, you know, a bit more of a finer side, just to kind of then neaten it nicely in. And already that's all nice and looking better, but we can come along and we go for an even finer skinny stick to just nicely kind of almost polish it off, just so it's nice and neat for when spraying. And that looks nice and neat. You take away the risk of chopping it with a blade and everything. But in saying that, to be honest with you, I've got so used to using a blade to chop everything that I still come along and do that today. And I suppose really I've gained enough experience and kind of got used to it so much that I actually don't end up well, chopping away at the piece I want to keep. I also like to use the blade if you've got any kind of like flash maybe going around here. I just scrape our blade across here and it just takes out those nasty little kind of like tiny bits of flash. We're not talking big flash, noticeable flash, we're just talking that nice, that kind of little bit of flash that you sometimes get. You probably notice it on weapons mainly. You got that little kind of line of flash kind of on a weapon and stuff, and you can basically come along with a blade like this and you just, you know, stroke it down and it will remove those bits of flash that you see. So I've done that to basically all these pieces, so they're all nicely prepped up. So we want to get them glued together. Now in the past you probably have used like the poly cement, which what you'd probably normally do is you'd come along, you'd take your two pieces and you'd blob on loads of glue onto your piece, and then you'd take the two pieces and put them together, and that's how you would glue them together. But these days, and doing it more professionally, it's actually better, neater and easier to use something like Tamia extra thin cement. Now you can't really get this in the UK really. I have to go on eBay and get it imported from places like China and stuff, and Taiwan. You're probably talking about paying about maybe £7 or £8, and it probably take about a week, 2 weeks to get to the UK. But with this stuff, it's really good, because what you do is you put your two pieces together unglued, and you can come along with things like an elastic band, and you can hold your model together like that. You can come along with stuff like masking tape as well, just to hold the pieces together nicely. And the way it works is, this stuff is so thin that it's like thinners basically. I mean, it's thinner than water, and all you've got to do is you just touch. You can literally just touch where the two pieces meet, and what will happen is, because it's so thin, the capillary action will literally go right into our little seam lines here, and it will run up and down. And although I've just dabbed that right there in that spot, the glue has actually kind of, you know, gone maybe a centimetre or two either way and really gone into the model. And that's how, you know, we kind of glue our models these days, which you probably already know, but if you're coming back to this hobby, you know, it's nice to know that, you know, things have changed and they've got better, and, you know, there's easier ways of doing it. So just to kind of show you how much that has gone in, I don't know if you can tell, right, but that has actually, although I just dabbed that in one spot, it's actually run all the way across here. So it really does get in there and run all over the place. And if you can kind of imagine, all you've got to do is actually just run a brush along the seam line, and you'll get this glue all nicely in there the way you want it. Not only that, I mean, this stuff, I mean, it was a kind of a pain, but when you kind of glued around and then put your pieces together, I mean, it would ooze out of all your joins and everything, and you'd touch it with your fingers, end up with like cobwebs everywhere and everything. So it's a lot neater in that sense with the Tamia extra thin cement, because it's so thin as well. It goes into your join and into your seam lines where you want to glue it, and any glue that you've got on the surface, because it's so thin, it evaporates really quickly. So, you know, a couple of seconds later and you could probably touch that area, and you're not going to have, you know, the nasty effects that you would with polished cement. I mean, obviously, you know, if you do touch it a couple of seconds after, it's going to be a bit soft, and you're going to make a bit of a fingerprint mark, but it does dry that much that, you know, you don't get the nasty and unneat effects as you do with a polished cement. Not only that, just to kind of explain how this glue works as well, it doesn't kind of like glue, it basically melts the plastic, so that when the two pieces of plastic meet, they melt, they soften up, they go all gooey, and they basically weld together rather than glue together, which gives you that nice seam line. When you come to sand it away later, it looks like the two pieces of plastic are actually one. So really good to use this stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do some glue in here, just to kind of show you by following the instructions. Basically, we've got our ejector seats here, which, to be honest, with this kit, they are well, not the best kit, not the best ejector seats, I must admit. And basically all I'm doing here is I'm putting two pieces together, and then I'm coming along with my glue, and I'm just simply dabbing it and just pushing the brush along the actual seam line, and that will glue our two pieces together. Now, you don't have to come along and keep on brushing along, because if you keep brushing, you're just going to start, basically the plastic melts, and you start going to end up with plastic on the end of your brush. So you don't need to brush it really hard or anything like that. you just need to dab it in there and kind of maybe help the capillary action a bit more by giving it a bit of a brush, and you know, I mean, that is it. It's nicely glued together. You know, with this one it's not quite going in that well, so you can come along with the peg and hold that together, and what that'll do, that'll push it in and then it'll glue in the position you want. Moving along with the cockpit area, I mean, this is all quite basic stuff really now after explaining the glue, but you do just simply put your pieces in and then you dab a bit of glue, and it's as simple as that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to cut away and I'm going to start gluing all these pieces together, and I'm going to come back and kind of, we're going to look at spraying this up and prepping it up for spraying and all that kind of stuff. Right then, I've got all this glued up now basically, and I'm just going to now go through what we're going to do next. We've got to kind of prep this up for spraying, but first off, the pilot, what I want to do before I glue the arms on the pilot, I want to basically seat the pilot in position and make sure his arms are going in the right place, rather than gluing them on and then you put it in and you find his arms are not in the place you want them to be. So I'm just going to put a little dab of glue onto one arm and I'm going to stick it on. Now I'm not going to worry too much at this point in time about where I want the arms and everything. I just want to get the arms on, because with this stuff it does take a long time to kind of go rock hard, so you know, I have got time now to kind of stick this in and then maneuver the arms the way I want them, knowing that I can move them, although it's still glued, into the positions I want. Right, so I'm just doing this now, getting his hand on the throttle, and I think that'll do, and so that's in a nice position. So now I just want to make sure they're nicely glued by adding just a bit there. Right then, so that's our pilot with his arms in position. Now I want to get this ready and prepped for spraying, so I find that if you can just drill a little hole, I know this is looks a bit painful, but you know, you just drill a little hole just here, and then you come along with a cocktail stick, and we'll put that there. Needs to be a bit more, so I'll just keep drilling at this. Okay, that's good. And then we put our cocktail stick in, and now our pilot is nicely, basically hands-free, to spray in and around and paint and do everything we want to do. And the same goes for one or two other things as well. I mean, we've got our instrument display panel here. We just get a cocktail stick, a bit of blue tack on the end, and that is now nicely ready for us to spray, and we can then paint in dials and all this kind of stuff, and then we just glue it in after. So we just get the second display panel done. Alright, so that's in place. We can spray this, the tub actually, like it is. The same goes for our ejector seats. Now, it's just finding somewhere to drill, but there isn't. So again, you know, a bit of blue tack. Now, you don't have to worry about not getting any spray at the back of here, because you're just not going to see it. Right, this is going to be, you know, in the cockpit, and you're just not going to see that section there where you're going to be spraying. Second seat, same again. These ejector seats, to be honest with you, are quite not very good on the detail. So yeah, I mean, if you want to get some resin seats, that would be good, or jazz them up with putting seat belts on them and that, which I might do after when I'm off camera. I don't want to go too much detailing, scratch building and making your own seat belts and stuff, but I might put some on there after. Then you've also got our little exhaust here. Now the instructions say to glue this into place and then glue our two fuselage sections together, but actually it can fit in after you've glued it together. So I'm going to leave this out so I can do some nice natural metal finishes, and it will just slot in whenever you want to slot it in. So you don't have to follow the instructions on that. Right then, just coming back to you after a bit of an airbrush blockage. I've cleaned that out now. What we're going to do is we're going to start spraying all this up now. I didn't look for the exact colour, but it looks like something like a barley grey for our cockpit area, which is Vallejo 71051 Model Air. I'm just going to whack this in now, neat, into the airbrush. Just being quick really. I mean, you can thin these down, but I'm only doing a quick spray, so although actually that's quite thick, so I'm going to come in with some Vallejo airbrush, Vallejo thinners. We're going to put some of that in there. Get out an old paintbrush, and we're just going to mix in our thinners and paint. Mixture, I mean, Vallejo, I mean, I'll just go 50-50, 50 thinners, 50 paint, and that seems to do the trick. Although this is supposed to be, you know, you can spray it neat, I do think it needs a little help with spraying. That's looking good. So I'm just checking my flow, checking how it's flowing out, and it's starting to look nice now. And I'm just simply going to give it nice light coats and then build up on that. Right. And same goes for our fuselage sections, just to get inside here all nice and painted. Yep. Give that some chance to dry. White coats first, and our instrument panels, give them a nice spray around. Our seats are going to be a different colour, and so are our pilots. Alright, if it's looking wet still when you come back, just cut to air and just give it a bit of a dry off, and then we can give it another coat, making sure you get in everywhere. Now, I mean, normally I'd have the extractor fan on when spraying and a face mask as well, but you're probably not going to hear me if I had all that on, so just keep that in mind when you're doing it. Alright, and this is now looking good. Got a nice little base coat going on there. Again, come in, cut to air if it's looking a bit wet still, and we give it another coat. Now the first coat just probably made it nice for the second coat to stick, and that second coat's gone on nicely. Well, that's that done. And our two instrument panels. So, I've got some leftover paint in here, and rather than wasting it, just a kitchen towel, paper towel, you can open this up and then make sure there's no bubble and just pour it back in. Now, because I used Vallejo thinners, I've poured it back in. But for example, if you use Tamia thinners or another manufacturer of thinners to mix another manufacturer of paint, I wouldn't recommend pouring it back in, because I've noticed that some paints have ended up getting ruined by using different manufacturers of thinners to different manufacturer of paint. So just kind of keep the manufacturers the same if you want to pour it back in. Although I can pour Tamia X20A thinners into, well, pretty much any kind of manufacturer of paint, and it does spray nicely. It's just when it kind of sits in the pot after pouring it back, it does kind of can go funny depending on the manufacturer of paint. So I'm just going to put some airbrush cleaner in here and spray this through and get it clean, ready for our next colour. And just wiping it all out. Okay. Right, we're all clean now, ish. Let's put that out the way, and I'm going to use Vallejo 71048 Dark Sea Grey for the seats. I'm just going to whack some of that in. See if I can get away with neat, just to save a bit of time. Looks alright. I'm only going in neat here because it's only seats, it's a little bit. We're not doing any fancy pre-shading or anything like that. It's just get a colour down. That's all we need to do. Yeah. And that's gone on quite nice, so that's all done. Second seat the same. Spray it all around, nice little coats. Cut to air if it's getting too wet, and you can then put another coat on. Right, that's good. And again, I mean, we can blow away what's left in there. Maybe a bit of thinners to get rid of some more. And some airbrush cleaner. Yeah, nice quick colour changes. You know, you don't have to go mental with cleaning it, because I mean, you know, once you put the second colour in, it does, as long as it looks clean. I mean, you're not really going to mix the next colour that bad. But I mean, that looks nice and clean. And we can just put a bit more in and keep spraying until it sprays out clear thinners, and that's good. Right then, now we need some red, and I'm just gonna grab some Vallejo Scarlet Red 71003, and this is for our pilots. Right, so give that a good shake. Pour it in neat again, see if we can get away with it. And we spray our pilots up red. And this is basically the base colours that are going down for all our cockpit area. We're then going to come along and we're going to, you know, start doing some hand painting and all that kind of stuff, and start bringing it to life. And then we're going to weather it up with like washes and all this kind of stuff, and we've got a nice red pilot now. Second one, move it around. See the benefits of using a cocktail stick? I mean, I can just get in wherever I want. I'm not touching it, you know, I'm not spraying one half or holding the other half and then waiting for the one half to dry and then hold the other half and spray the other half. You know, it's just a lot easier just to prep it up with some nice cocktail sticks. And there you go, that's all done. Right. So that's our red. I've just kind of oversprayed onto these, which I'm going to have to kind of go back and sort them out now. This paint needs just a bit of time to dry, and then we're going to start doing some painting and stuff and kind of showing you that. So I'm just going to cut away and kind of let that dry, and we'll get back to some painting. Right, back to it now. This is all kind of nicely dried now, and I've just what I did is I had a bit of overspray on these. All I did was come back and respray them, wasn't a big deal. Now, these may look a bit funny, these pilots, but what I wanted to do, I wanted to get a nice helmet going on. So what I've done is, the Red Arrow pilots helmets, they have a red stripe going down the middle and the rest of the helmet's white. So what I've done is I've used some really kind of, it's about a 1.5mm tape here, just to give us our stripe, and then I've just kind of quickly masked up around with some Tamia tape just to protect the rest of the pilot. So we're going to come along and we're going to mix in some white. I'm using again Vallejo white here, which is 71001, and we're just gonna check our flow, and we're just gonna start spraying his helmet to make it white. Now, white can be a bit of a pain to like go on, so I definitely like to go neat with white, because if you kind of thin white, what you might find is you end up having to put coat after coat after coat after coat on. So if you go neat, you kind of slow, kind of make things a bit quicker, and it goes on quicker. Right, we're almost there. We've got a bit of spitting going on with the airbrush, so I'm just wiping the end of the needle, checking our flow. I think we've got a slight blockage. Just going to turn the air pressure up and see if I can blow it out, which it looks like I have, and going to get back in, spray it some more. Once it's kind of wet, cut to air, and spray some more until it's nice and white, which we are nice and white now. And the same. That's the one thing about the Vallejo white, is for some reason after a certain period of time it does go quite lumpy quite quick, and that's what's going on with my airbrush. It's I'm trying to spray through bits of lumps of white, which you can filter your paint. There are techniques of doing that, but for something small like this, I don't really want to faff around filtering paint right now, when I just need to just quickly get this down on this little bit of an area. So, getting this all nice and white. So as I say, it does take a bit of time to get it white, but we're there. So we can demask that, and we should have hopefully a nice red stripe going down, and we should have protected the rest of our pilot's uniform being red. So I'll put that to one side. So now we're coming to our painting stage. Now, it's a bit of a shame with this kit, because the cockpit detail is terrible, to be honest with you. So coming along and doing this painting isn't gonna look that good, in all honesty. But I can kind of give you the general idea of how to put it together, and by having the pilots in as well, actually will kind of cover up the nasty cockpit detail we've got here. So to start off with, you can kind of do this two ways. But first off, painting. I mean, I've got like the Vallejo extra acrylic and Tamia paints and everything, but I find for painting that the Games Workshop Citadel do seem to be the best for painting. Now, you can come along and get all your buttons and just, you know, dab them with a bit of white, and, you know, mix up the colours a bit, and kind of maybe a couple of buttons are yellow, red, all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of like that paint using your brush side of things. But you can come along and you can use a cocktail stick as well, and just get a bit of paint on your cocktail stick, and you just brush it along all your raised buttons, and it does nicely put paint onto all your buttons, as you can probably see. Just get this done. Right. So as you can see, I mean, on the left side I've painted, on the right side I've used a cocktail stick. So that's kind of like the basic idea of just putting, you know, just some paint down and getting our cockpit area, bringing it to life a bit. The next thing as well is stuff like dials. If you get a bit of water and make your paint a bit thinner than normal, right, what you get is a paint that has got a nice bit of a capillary action going on. So for something like a dial, you can come along and you can just dab a bit in there. That needs to be a bit thinner, and literally the capillary action will take it to the corners and should give you a nice rounded dial. But it is a bit tricky and you've got to be careful, but it does help, because you haven't got to, you know, paint a nice circle all round, you know, because the thinness of the paint will give the capillary action to go in the dial and basically paint the dial for you. So as you can see there, that has nicely made a nice circle, and I haven't had to be, you know, too kind of detail-y with it. The next thing I'd do after this is come along with a gloss, and I'd like painting the gloss into the dials as well, which would kind of give you that kind of a glass kind of look, just to, you know, give you a different kind of mattes and glosses, just to give that bit more depth and detail as well. Now I could go off and paint all of this and kind of bore you to death, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the paint down on all of this and show you what I've finished, and then we can get down to weathering it up and everything. So I'm just going to cut away, get this painted, and we'll look at some weathering.